When Justice League was being made, DC sent 2 executives to babysit the decisions that Zack Snyder made for the film. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Zack Snyder has become somewhat of a legend in the world of DC. While the franchise has been moving to a new phase, leaving him behind, the impact that his films had on the reputation of the franchise is something to be studied. While this is true, many seem to forget the kind of criticism that he received when he was in his prime and not a glorified figure of the past. There were many things that hardcore fans of the comics did not like about his films. It would seem that DC Studios caught on quite quickly and took some very serious steps to ensure that his vision aligned with theirs. While some might call the measures they took extreme, Snyder did not seem to mind them in the slightest. One of the biggest criticisms that Zack Snyder got during his term with DC Studios was the fact that his films were too dark, be it in the general themes of the franchise or simply the visual aspects. The criticism became so widely known that instead of just his films getting such a reputation, the entire DCU was perceived the same way. He turned certain characters that were supposed to be bright, like Superman, and turned them grayscale. He also broke quite a lot of fundamental rules for certain characters, with Batman and his refusal to kill being the perfect example of the same. With this in mind, it would seem that the franchise was not taking any chances in his Justice League film. During an interview with Vanity Fair, it was revealed that the franchise had given DC Entertainment creative chief Geoff Johns and Warner Bros. Co-production head Jon Berg the responsibility of overseeing the director's filmmaking process. It would seem that at least one of them was required to be on set at all times to ensure that everything was in check, as revealed by Berg. It was really tricky and not a position that I loved, to be honest. I tried to be forthright about what I thought creatively. My job was to try to mediate between a creator whose vision is instinctually dark and a studio that perceived, rightly or wrong, that the fans wanted something lighter. I was respectful of the director and didn't pursue things that were coming at me from the corporate side that I thought weren't in line with what would make the best movie. Although he did not like his position in the slightest, he made sure to be rational about the requests he was making of Snyder. It is safe to assume that if any other director was put in such a position, they would have walked off the project the moment they found out. Having people oversee someone's creative process for the sake of bureaucracy is certainly an insult in the eyes of many. However, it would seem that Zack Snyder wasn't one of them. When asked about the same, the director claimed he knew what they were on set for. He added, he started by calling Geoff Johns and Jon Berg's jobs babysitting rather than overseeing, perfectly encapsulating the purpose he believed the studio to have with their presence on set. However, he then added that he did not mind their insight, simply because they did not approach him in a hostile manner. It didn't bother me too much because they weren't that threatening. I just felt the ideas they did have, where they were trying to inject humor and stuff like that, it wasn't anything that was too outrageous. Rather than taking over the project and demanding that everything be done according to the studio, they only intervened when they felt it to be necessary. Zeus and Wonder Woman in the DCU is almost as controversial as his decision for Ben Affleck's Batman in the eyes of Cinder, which made their presence acceptable. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. Zack Snyder's DCU feels like a long-forgotten fever dream now that the new age of the DCU dawns with James Gunn and company. However, there was a time when Snyder's unrealized plans for his DC films, which began with Henry Cavill's Man of Steel, excited fans despite their polarizing response at the cinemas. Snyder finished his run with the DCU after Zack Snyder's Justice League, but revealed many of his initial plans for the franchise that included a 5-film arc. Among other deviations from the comics, the filmmaker revealed that he planned to ground the origins of gods like Zeus and heroes like Wonder Woman in the reality of the films by making them Kryptonian. While the MCU and Marvel Comics explored Norse mythology with heroes like Thor and Loki, the DC Universe explored Greek and Roman mythology in the comics. From the Amazons to Atlantis, the Greek mythologies were expanded to be included in the superhero universe of the comics, with characters like Zeus and Ares making appearances. While Ares was the main antagonist in 2017's Wonder Woman, the god of lightning and the king of gods, Zeus, was revealed in the opening montage of Wonder Woman and Justice League. Zack Snyder's vision for the DCU included an exploration of the way gods and godlike figures are treated, with Henry Cavill's Superman turning from an alien to a god. In a Q&A panel held in 2023, Snyder revealed how he planned to give an explanation of the origins of other gods' powers within the DCU. He said, via comic book, "We thought, Zeus could possibly be Kryptonian, so that Wonder Woman's powers. Anyway, you can sort of see where that's going. The whole thing of whether or not magic or gods, there's a version of where you're like, that's cool, I guess, then there's the scientific aspect. You have the pathology of wondering where gods come from. We had played around with that quite a bit. The films would reportedly then explore the concept of new gods like Darkseid and Steppenwolf, who entered Earth with Justice League. Fans got a glimpse of Zack Snyder's plans for the DCU with visions in Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. A post-apocalyptic world ruled by Darkseid and a rogue Superman, with Batman and other heroes teaming up with the likes of Joker to stop the two. However, Snyder definitely had more in mind. Despite the concept of a realistic explanation of Zeus and Ares' powers, as well as the difference between the old gods and the new gods, with Henry Cavill's Superman acting like a weird bridge, being interesting, the Kryptonian origins of the Olympian gods did not go down well with fans. Many criticized the idea and were grateful it was not realized on film. The Snyderverse is finally dead now, and James Gunn is set to explore gods and monsters in his own bright and hopeful way with the DCU and Superman.
Veteran director
David
Zack
Cornsweat's
Snyder,
Superman
known for his
seems to be the
extensive
only
work in the
god
DCU,
on the horizon
revealed
for now.
that he took his work with him when he left Warner Brothers. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. It was a terrible moment for Zack Snyder when he temporarily left the production of Justice League to attend to some personal matters. He was devastated when he saw Joss Whedon stepping in as the director and the chaotic mess that it resulted in. After leaving Warner Brothers, Snyder was often called for his input on the film that was being made by Joss Whedon. It got to a point where Zack and Deborah Snyder, his wife, decided to stop completely. The end result was the poorly received Whedon's Justice League, which was hailed by many fans as one of the worst DC films to exist. However, when Snyder left Warner Brothers, he took his laptop with him on which a sticker of Justice League was emblazoned. As per his talks with Vanity Fair, the laptop had the 4-hour uncut version of his version of the film. The film was devoid of any visual effects or music and was completely in black and white. We would just show it to random people who stopped by, like our friends or whatever. As fate would have it, fans of Snyder went on a campaign, and the hashtag #ReleaseTheSnyderCut hashtag was trending on Twitter, now X, for quite a while. Zack Snyder finally got to see his version of the film released in theaters as Zack Snyder's Justice League was eventually released in 2021. The film turned out to be one of Snyder's best and was one of the most anticipated films for DC characters. However, it wasn't without some disputes. Starting in 2013, Snyder's take on Henry Cavill's Man of Steel forced people to turn their heads as Superman's no-kill rule was broken on theater screens. His DCU was a dark take on these characters who were rather on the good or evil side. Snyder loved morally gray characters, and as a result, there were some tensions with Warner Brothers while he was working on his films. According to his interview with a Hollywood Reporter, Snyder reported that they picked the wrong guy. "I never looked at it as the job.